Welcome back to Issues and Answers here at the Glenwood Springs City Hall, brought to you by the Glenwood Springs Chamber Resort Association. We will continue our discussion on issues, and concluding with Amendment 66, the statewide tax increase for school funding. And in opposition, we have Steve Reynolds from Club 20. In favor of Amendment 66, Diana Sirko, Superintendent of Schools, Roaring Fork School District RE1. We'll begin with Mr. Reynolds, 2-minute opening statement.
Okay. As Ron said, my name is Steve Reynolds, and I'm the chairman of Club 20. And last spring, we first heard about this, and over the last 6 months, we've spent quite a bit of extensive time with the sponsors of the bill. And we want to say thank you to them and acknowledge their availability to help explain the details of it, because it's a complicated bill. I want to also say that Club 20 believes in a strong, well-funded education system is imperative to the future of our state, and we are in favor of a strong education system and good education reform. And that said, at our fall meeting, the Board of Directors took a position of opposing Amendment 66. We kind of came up with 3 main issues that we have with it. And first and foremost is that we do not believe that throwing almost $1 billion the first year and even more after that at a huge bureaucracy like the state education system will improve the teaching and learning in the classroom. We actually believe that it will add more bureaucracy to the teachers and that they will have to deal with that. Second of all, we believe that the state constitution is not a good place for us to do our state budgeting. With this, if this amendment passes, it will dedicate 43% of the state's general fund to K-12 education. And without knowing what might happen in the future, we don't think that's a good place to be, and it'll hamstring our legislature. Our third belief is that the 2-tier income tax system that's proposed will significantly damage small business in Western Colorado. The amendment says that they will not tax companies, but in Western Colorado, most of our companies are LLCs and subchapter S corps, and they pass their profits through to the state by personal taxes through the owners. So it actually is. So that's our reasons.
Sirko.
Okay. Well, it certainly is my pleasure to be here to talk about what I believe is an amendment that can make a profound difference in education in Colorado. As a 39-year Colorado educator, in fact, my grandmother was born in Glenwood in 1904, so I'm a several generation Colorado, and I believe that Colorado stands for high-quality education and also has those values to know that we don't get something for nothing, that when we want something, we know that there's a price that's attached to that. So I'm here to talk about Colorado is well known and well respected across the nation for their aggressive reform agenda. And that reform agenda is around not only raising expectations, but also raising accountability for those expectations. So no one is looking for an easy road without that accountability. We know that that goes with any additional dollars. So we are known for our successful schools, but those successes are too often coming despite the way we fund our schools. We need to make the investment to create a better system for all of our students. Right now, Colorado is $2,000 below the national average on our per pupil spending. We are dramatically below even the states that neighbor us. For instance, Nebraska spends over $4,000 per student more than we do. Wyoming about $8,000 more per student, but we won't call that the norm. And even in New Mexico, I think that about $1,600 to $1,700 more per student. This amendment would allow us to make up $1,000 of that per student, so then we would only be $1,000 below the national average. Right now, Colorado is spending 65% of their state budget each year on education, on K-12 education. This would lower that to 43%, thus ensuring vitality of other programs in Colorado. Amendment 66 is an investment that we need to make. Our current tax policy issues already?
Will be discussed later.
Thank you.
All right, we'll begin with the questions, and we'll begin with Diana with a 1-minute response, 1-minute response, and a 1-minute rebuttal. So, and then we'll rotate with each question. Other than repealing Amendment 23, how do you respond to the criticism that this shouldn't be put in the Constitution? Aren't we once again flirting with potentially serious unintended consequences by putting provisions such as the 43% education spending threshold in the Constitution?
I think Colorado has long had a problem with that. They've all too often put their tax policy issues into the Constitution, therefore making it very difficult. An example is Gallagher Amendment, Tabor Amendment, and Amendment 23. So what this does is allow us to at least make some inroads in adjusting or being able to address some of those, because it has tied the hands of legislators to be able to address issues in a timely manner when the economy tanks. $1 billion was cut out of education over the last 4 years because of that lack of flexibility. I have 30 more seconds? Okay, I'll take it. So I think you look at those tax policy issues. We watch our world change very rapidly. We need to have full-day kindergarten as a norm for all children. We're not able to do that because of our lack of flexibility at the state level. So this would allow us to have full-day kindergarten for all children, additional early childhood programs, more individualization of instruction for students, and those things that we know make a difference.
Okay.
Great.
1 minute, Steve?
First of all, Amendment 23 had something happen a few years ago that was kind of quietly done at the legislature. They changed the definition of the word base, which is what Diane's talking about, which is how, even with Amendment 23, and we're supposed to have continuing increase or consistent education spending, we actually lost that. And so our question at Club 20 has been, what's going to prevent a similar type thing from happening? Another thing is the people who are sponsoring and who are significant players in the development of Amendment 66 and Senate Bill 213 are Senator Johnston, Senator Raleigh Heath, and former state treasurer Kerry Kennedy. And those were 3 of the players that were significantly involved in writing Amendment 23.
Rebuttal?
Rebuttal. I think what happened with Amendment 23 was meant to ensure that we could somehow balance the impact of the Tabor Amendment and the ceilings that it created, as well as some of the issues with the Gallagher Amendment. What happened was that Amendment 23, instead of becoming a guarantee of inflation plus 1% for the first 10 years, and then inflation after that, became a floor rather than a ceiling. So it became a minimum amount of education. So like, for instance, this past year, when there was an additional surplus of $800,000, then they were not able, they were refused to put those dollars into education, even though $1 billion had been cut over the course of the last 4 years. And because they said we met the requirements that were, those minimums required by Amendment 23. So Amendment 23 was seen as a way to protect education, and it became instead a way to keep education from restoring some of those dollars that were lost. Even though there were increases in accountability and requirements, there were no additional dollars to go with those.
Next question, we go with Steve. Colorado ranks low in per-student education funding. What would you propose as an alternative mechanism for funding Senate Bill 213 if Amendment 66 does not pass, or for public education in general?
It's my belief and the belief of Club 20 that the best decisions are made at the local level. And over the past several years, let's call it 20, 30, there's been a shift from the amount of school funding that's been produced by the property tax levies as opposed to the state budget. And what we believe is that if we could get the local control back into a stronger position, that our superintendents and our teachers are going to be more in tune with what their needs are than the legislators down in Denver.
We certainly are supportive of local control. I think what's happened, though, across the state of Colorado is that you have many districts where they will not pass anything additional for their schools. Our community was very generous to us and passed a $4 million mill levy. That's not occurring. In some counties, they've not passed a mill levy for many, many years. So they've allowed Colorado schools to fall further and further behind what is needed to produce a high-quality education. Good education is good business. You cannot attract a high-quality workforce without high-quality education, without high-quality schools. That's part of a high-quality community. So if we're going to support our businesses in attracting and retaining the very best people, we've got to have those great schools, and we simply cannot leave it to chance by saying, let's trust people to make a difference for all schools equally across the state of Colorado. Our over 200-year history has shown us that that simply does not work.
Rebuttal?
No.
Okay. Diana, what if this passes and subsequent assessments of student achievement turn out to be subpar? What recourse will voters have, particularly once it is part of the Colorado Constitution?
I would say that they have the same recourse they have now or any other time. In other words, anytime, I mean, there is a way to remove a constitutional amendment through the same democratic process that would have, put it in place in the first place. This was the result of a 2.5-year study of the Colorado Finance Act to say, how can we, get the things we want in terms of our high-quality education and pay for them in a way that's reasonable. Colorado has the 45th lowest individual, local, and state tax burden in the nation. This would only make that the 41st lowest individual state and tax, local and state tax burden. We lowered our tax in Colorado to 4.63% many years ago, and all we're doing is restoring that. And the progressive tax piece is a concern, obviously, for everyone, but most states have that. And for most Colorado taxpayers, the average family of 4 would pay approximately anywhere between $130 and $150 per year, a relatively small investment for a large gain.
Steve?
Actually, my anticipation would be that if this passes, that will be the case. My grandmother and my mother were both elementary ed teachers, and so I grew up in the education system. And I'm a firm believer that more money is not what really it takes to get these kids better education. It's more great teachers. I have 2 kids, one just graduated and one is in the high school now here in Glenwood Springs, and I have nothing but accolades for the school system here. It's not a question and a problem with the teachers. The problem is that teachers have, it's why my mom retired ultimately, is because the bureaucracies that are added to the teacher's workload and the restraints from them actually teaching from these type of amendments, these type of bills, these kind of bureaucratic structures is what is making the jobs difficult for those teachers.
Rebuttal?
I would say that, like for instance, in Roaring Fork School District, we're proud that we have one of the smallest percentage-wise district offices, and I guess what you would call bureaucracies. Yeah. So funding that at the local level, that's not where it's getting bottled up. But what does happen is we have many unfunded mandates that come down the pike from our legislature. And so what we are doing is struggling to make all of those a reality. I look at, that in this day and age, people want mass customization, more individual attention. This would allow us to be able to address some of those needs. It would add more dollars for all individual students' needs around, from our at-risk students to those enrolled in gifted and talented programs, from our English language learners, full-day kindergarten. In other words, I do agree that we need to make sure we have less red tape, but we also know that we're going to have high-quality teachers in the classroom. You cannot do that without more dollars into the system. It's not exactly as if we're choosing between $12,000 per student and $14,000 per student. We're talking about $7,000 per student versus $8,000.
Okay. Beginning with Steve, do you think Amendment 23 needs to be repealed? If so, how would you propose doing that, if not through Amendment 66?
First of all, I do believe that Amendment 23 should be repealed. It's my understanding that because of the timing of it and this change in definition that happened in the legislature in the past year or so, that it effectively is less of a hamstring to the legislative budget process than it was initially. And so, like Diane said, there would be a process if Amendment 66 does not pass. If it passes, I believe Amendment 23 goes away as a part of this, is what I was told. And if Amendment 66 does not pass, then I would like to see us, I don't know that getting rid of some guaranteed minimum funding for education is a good thing to have in our system to guarantee that. But I think that we need to get back to the drawing board and we need to work collaboratively and come up with a better Amendment 66.
I believe one of the things that we're missing here is the impact of the Tabor Amendment. So, I mean, you've got Gallagher, which really discourages indirectly business growth in Colorado. You've got the Tabor Amendment that has these limits. And due to the recession that we went through from 2008 on, as I said, we lost over $1 billion. And because of the Tabor limits, as the economy improves, those dollars will not naturally go into education because we'll butt up against those Tabor limits, and then those dollars will be returned to the taxpayers. So we will never be able to restore the funding that we have. So even if we get rid of 23, we still need to have some remedy or some method to address the shrinking dollars. As I said, right now, 65% of the state's budget is going to K-12 education. This would add additional dollars and make it 43%. So other state programs, dollars for transportation, dollars for, other programs would be benefited by pulling in a way, K-12 is a little bit of a drain because there's a shrinking amount of dollars available. We've got to add something more into the pot.
Rebuttal? Okay. Couldn't a $1 billion tax increase hurt our fragile recovery? What is the hurry? Why is it necessary to do this right now? Diana.
I don't believe it will hurt our fragile recovery because the individual impact on each person is not that great. When I look at, for an average family of four, 133 have been some estimates. I've heard others make that estimate about $145 per person or per family per year. So that's not a dramatic, that's, less than a Starbucks coffee a week. I mean, it's it adds up pretty fast, but so I don't believe that would hurt our fragile economy. I believe it would actually help our economy because some of the things we're paying for now, a family's paying, for instance, over $360 a month for their child to attend full-day kindergarten because the state is only paying 0.58% or 58% rather of the cost of a child attending kindergarten. So, this would then relieve those families who have children in school immediately. So, there are those kind of things that we're paying for in fees and, different things day in and day out that would be relieved by having those dollars go directly into education.
Actually, I believe that it would. I think that if Amendment 66 passes, and statewide, I'm not sure exactly how it will affect it because the Front Range is really recovering at a much faster pace than we are out here on the Western Slope. But out here on the Western Slope, most of our business is small business. And the corporations aren't going to be contributing in this formula. It's the individual income tax only. And the people who are making more than $75,000 who are impacted most significantly, a lot of those make that money through their businesses. And so and when you do the calculations, I think it's a family making about $50,000 that comes up to 133. But anyway, it will be significantly more for the families making 75 to 100,000. That will be money going to the taxes that those businesses could have been employing additional people, doing more research, things like that.
Has nothing to do with it.
Well, I guess I would just remind us that, people are paying those dollars now in additional fees, in additional structures, because people do want more for their children. Our forefathers created a public school system as part of a need to create an educated citizenry so we could all take our place as responsible citizens. And so we're still going to be paying for those dollars, and we know that it costs $23,000 a year to keep a prisoner. So if we don't have an educated citizenry, the impact, the pluses and minuses, will cost us more, much more over time. So this is a much more expedient and better quality life, and it's a better use of our dollars, because we will be paying those dollars. They're not going to be gone. They'll just be used for something else to get the same services.
Okay. Any questions from the audience? Yes.
First of all, I'd like to state that as someone who is in the tax bracket that you're concerned about, I can say that I absolutely support this amendment. After going through our financials, I feel that spending possibly $5 a week, maybe 8 tops, for my children to be part of something that would provide almost $3.5 million to Garfield County alone, I'm on board with that. The other point that I haven't heard yet, and Diane, if you could qualify, because I think after listening to Steve's points, there may be some issues that maybe Club 20 may want to consider. First of all, Diane, isn't it true that there will be a separate fund that will not be part of the general fund here in the state? So that will be fully transparent. All of that money goes directly to the districts, which is exactly what the concerns of seem to be from Club 20. So there's transparency, there's a full accountability, and there's the ability for any individual like myself to actually go on a website and see exactly where the money is going to and how it's being spent. The other issue is a businesswoman, and a woman who believes that we attract better businesses when we have a strong education system. I know when our family started to look to relocate, we looked for the structure of the education system. I feel that as we move forward, Diane, really this has the potential to attract better businesses, but also better teachers when they know that they have the funding sources. I look at RE2, 4 days. We passed our mill levy, but down the road, they have 4 days. And I feel that it's very strong to emphasize, and maybe I'm off base, but can you talk about a little more deeply the components as to the investments, the return on the investments with children, and in your experience, how that is affected in attracting a better business community?
Well, I think there is no question that a high-quality education is good business. I think that when you look at attracting and retaining high-quality teachers to the community, you need to have a viable, education system, a viable community, and part of that, it all goes together with quality of life issues. I think that there, as you said, this would be restoring some of the programs that were lost across the state and certainly in our own district. It is adding that individual attention, adding more early childhood education, all those things that attract people to a community. The transparency is also there. And these dollars would be put very carefully in a special fund that is really meant to create more autonomy at the individual school level. So it really keeps some of us district bureaucrats as well as the state bureaucrats out of the business and says, this money is meant to be determined more at the school level where it goes on behalf of our students. So it really is meant to be right at the point of delivery so that those services reach kids quicker and faster.
Steve, 1 minute.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. There is the separate fund and the ability to go into a website to look at it, and the transparency is supposed to be there. Senator Johnston spent quite a bit of time explaining the details of how that will work, and one of the questions we had is if, in fact, it will work the way that it's proposed to work. One of the things that that we are familiar with is that there's the Colorado Educators Association is actually in the process of putting together a lawsuit. One of the things that we support about Senate Bill 123 is the teacher accountability piece. And they're actually in the process of preparing a lawsuit that they're going to wait until after this before they see, so that they can not have to comply with that. Lawsuits are not sure of how they're going to play out as far as undoing some of the.
But we're not talking about a legislative initiative. We're talking here about a ballot initiative with our Constitution.
Okay, we have to limit that,
Oh,
sorry, yeah. Get up and rebuttal.
Well, in terms of rebuttal around that, I think this really isn't a legislative issue. I mean, this is an amendment, a constitutional amendment. The other piece is the lawsuit that the Colorado Education Association is really contemplating has to do with the mutual consent piece of the Senate Bill 191, the educator effectiveness legislation, and simply does not seek to undo the other reforms Colorado has done, but really to look at one provision of Senate Bill 191, the educator effectiveness. So it does not address the overall intention of it, which is to improve and enhance the quality of education by ensuring that you have a high-quality teacher in every classroom and high-quality school leaders. Because we know those are the two factors that have the greatest impact on student achievement, is that interaction between teacher and student every day and a strong leader in every school creating the conditions for success.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll go on to our closing statements, beginning with Diana with 1 minute closing.
Sure, let me look for my notes here. I guess, that finally, we know that no one likes tax increases, but the cost of this, less than $150 for the average family of 4 in the state of Colorado, is a small price to pay for good schools. Good schools are good business and do make a difference in the high quality of our communities. We know that our goal is that every child leaves us college and career ready. And people often say, but we don't know if every child wants to go to college. We want to make sure they have the skills and tools to do it. So then it's really only a choice if you have the skills to do it. So making sure that all of our students have that. We want to make sure that all of our students have full-day kindergarten. We know that when a student comes from a home that is less educated than another home, they have a 5,000-word vocabulary when they come to school versus a 20,000-word vocabulary. We've got to level that playing field for all students. It contributes to the quality of all of our lives. So Colorado has cut $1 billion from education during the last 4 years, asking Colorado taxpayers to pay to go from the 45th tax burden to the 41st is not an overreach on the part of our legislature or of our citizenry to ask for more for our children. I know it sounds like a cliche, but they really are our future.
Steve?
As Club 20 as an organization, we strongly support education throughout the state. P20 is what we focus on. Preschool, absolutely. We've gone through more of a business analysis. We've looked at the $1 billion. Certainly, the all-day kindergarten, we support that. We support the teacher support. What we were not able to add up the various components. It came up to statewide about $600 million in actual money was all that they could actually account for that they could actually show us for that. We believe, ideologically, we totally believe in education reform, strong education. We just don't believe that Amendment 66 and $1 billion right now is the answer.
All right, thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
I want to thank our sponsors, the Glenwood Springs Chamber Resort Association, Glenwood Springs Post Independent, KMTS, Cable Channel 10, local State Farm Insurance agents Jeff Leonard and Dee McCown. Thanks to Cable Channel 10 for their live broadcast, and a special thank you to the City of Glenwood Springs, allowing us to broadcast live from City Hall. Thanks to our timer, Scott Anderson, and to you, the voter. This is a mail ballot election, and ballots must be returned by Tuesday, November 5th. This event will be rebroadcast on tonight at 8 o'clock, as well as October 19th, 20th, 24th, and 25th at 7 a.m., noon, 7 p.m., and midnight on Cable Channel 10. And again, a video of this forum will also be available at glenwoodchamber.com. Thank you, have a good evening, and be sure and vote.